Okay, happy Monday, Year 9. It's really good to have you joining us again this week as we continue with our new topic, rhetoric and persuasion. So we are going to be looking at how some other speeches work today to inform the writing of our own. But we're just going to start with this kind of retrieval activity. Last lesson, we were looking at this concept of arrangement, the idea that speeches have to be arranged. Once we've done the invention, the planning, and the research, we have to organize our information in a particular way. And we did introduce a diagram to illustrate that organization. But oh my goodness, who'd have thought it? The arrangement of the speech has been muddled up. So elements of this plan are out of place. So your starter today, just to get you retrieving and thinking back to last week, is whether or not you can sort out the right structure and shape of ideas. So for example, we definitely don't want ending at the beginning, do we? So where would we move that one to? Is setting in the right or wrong place? What about falling action? Is character really the pinnacle of our speech? And rising action? There's a little clue in the shape of this diagram. I've got a feeling that's not where it's really meant to be. And climax there, is it? Okay, guys, so you're going to press pause. Now, you can either recreate this diagram in your book, or you can just list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just write it. 1 being what would come at the beginning, and 6 at the ending. Okay, so we'll press pause now. Give yourself time to do this. Obviously, we are trying to remember from last week, so if you can do it without looking at your notes, brilliant. But at the same time, don't be stressed. It's still part of the learning process if you have a look at your notes to help you. See you on the other side with the answers. Okay, so we know that one's wrong. So what is the right order? So we're going to have a little look. Here we go. So can you see, did you get it right? So as we go through these, give yourself a tick if you were right. If you were wrong, make a note of where you were wrong so you don't do it again. So we always begin our speech with character. Okay, in other words, that ethos moment where we present ourselves as credible, trustworthy, caring genuinely about our topic, and somebody that's knowledgeable. So we always begin with character. Then we think about the setting. From that, we go to the rising action. Then the climax, the pinnacle of our argument, the most important thing we're here to say. Then we go to the falling action and the ending. So for each of those where you were right, give yourself a tick. Make a note of the ones you got wrong. Okay, and that's our retrieval part. Now, remember, this is the second part of rhetoric, the arrangement, the organization of ideas. In last lesson, we did look at planning for our own speeches and arrangement of ideas. Now, what we're going to do today, because we're on week 10, session 1, is we're going to just pause today in terms of our own speech writing, and we are going to look at this third part of rhetoric, which is style. So guys, we can have as our main title today, the ongoing title, the 5 parts of rhetoric, and as a subheading, the third part of rhetoric, style. So working backwards, in third place, we have style, in second place, arrangement, and in first place, invention. So we've done first place work, invention, we've planned and come up with a choice of topic. Second place, the arrangement, we've done a mini arrangement following that character setting, rising action, climax, falling action, and ending. And today we're looking at the third part, style. Now, what do we mean by style? Well, style kind of is a Ronseal term. It does what it says on the tin. So when we talk about style, we're talking about the overall feel and tone of a piece. Okay, so we've got 3 choices that can impact on a speechwriter's decision. They can aim for the high style. Okay, so it says here, high style, lots of metaphors, elaborate verbal patterns, complex language, sophisticated use of rhetorical figures. Now for the middle style, that's a grand style of address, but with a plain spoken edge. And then low style, where the whole speech is delivered in a very conversational, colloquial style. Colloquial is a technical term for using everyday language, everyday expressions. Now, we are going to see these 3 styles in practice in a minute, but what I would like you to do is just to make a note, high style, middle style, low style. And it's easy with low style, you can just write the 2 keywords, conversational and colloquial. For middle style, you can just abbreviate, grand style, plain spoken edge, high style, metaphor, elaborate, complex. So just recording really your own definition of those 3 styles. But, and here's a big but down at the bottom here, it says the best speakers blend all 3 styles. and think very carefully about which parts they want to be very grand and metaphorical and which parts they want to be more blunt and plain. So just press pause now. Make sure you just record down that we're on the third part of rhetoric. We're looking at the style and we've got high, middle and low. Okay, now guys, I just want to illustrate these with you. Now this does not mean at this point that you need to write anything down, but I do want you to listen. Okay, so I'm going to deliver 3 stories, 3 bits of writing. One's in the high style, one's in the middle style, one's in the low style. Here's our high style. Okay, it was the moment of truth. I braced myself for battle, feet akimbo and arms forged in steel after years of preparation. Okay, so there we've got that kind of grand opening, moment of truth. We've gone straight in with like metaphorical, hyperbolic language. I braced myself for battle. So we've got complex kind of metaphors. Feet akimbo, there's my complex language. And arms forged in steel after years of preparation. Gosh, we're only on 2 sentences. We've got loads of metaphor going there. Lots of elaborate verbal patterns. With all my might, with all my strength, with all my power, I began to pull against the force of my foe. So look, guys, we've got that lovely alliterative force of my foe. That's a rhetorical feature. With all my might, with all my strength, with all my power. That's one of those rhetorical figures where you use the same sentence starter or the same phrase starter. My foe pulled back. This was a battle to rival that of the ancient Greeks, and yet with a Herculean effort, there's another rhetorical figure, the illusion, and a final flourish. My foe fell at my feet. The first fish of the day had been landed. So this was a really high style, lots of metaphor, elaborate verbal patterns, but really what am I describing? I've gone fishing. So let's have a look at the middle style, a little bit grand, but with a plain spoken edge. Fishing has been my favourite battleground since my father first taught me. So we've got a plain spoken edge. It's making it really clear we're talking about fishing, but a little bit of grand style coming in. Battleground. It was a place of quiet strategy where I would outthink, outweight, and outwit the fish. So he's still using some of those rhetorical devices. We've got the 3 at the end there, that rule of 3, outthink, outweight, and outwit the fish. Okay. We've got this fishing has been my favourite battleground, so quite an elaborate grand opening, but with the plain spoken edge. Still about fishing, but that middle style. So very quickly, we've got the grand high style of option 1. We've got the mix, a little bit of grand styling coming through, but with a plain spoken edge. And third, low style, conversational and colloquial. Guys, this weekend I went fishing and I caught a fish and it was this big. Conversational, colloquial. So actually just across those 3, you can see those 3 styles in illustration. Okay, and a reminder that really the best speakers blend all 3 styles and think carefully about which parts they want to be very grand and which parts they want to be more blunt and plain. Now, what we're going to do really for the main body of today's lesson is we're going to look at 2 speeches. One, I'm not saying which one yet, demonstrates what we would call that high style. Okay, and one demonstrates what we call the low style. So we're going to look at how in real time speeches demonstrate these 2 style features. Okay, so we're going to look at the 2 speeches. Now, the first thing I want to just say is this is one of those reading lessons where I just want you in a minute to listen. I'm going to read both speeches to you. I'm going to do the tasks afterwards, okay? So I do want you to listen, and I want you to listen actively, which means as I'm reading the speeches to you, I want you to stay focused, okay? I want you to follow on screen. I don't want you like looking over your shoulder and out the window, but we're not going to do the tasks until we've heard both of them. Okay, so we're going to try and determine which is in high style and which is in low style. Now, speech number 1 is by a colonel, a gentleman called Colonel Tim Collins. Now, he actually achieved worldwide fame with this because A, it was an improvised speech. So in other words, this wasn't pre-planned. This wasn't something he'd written and then tinkered with and then adapted and did all the processes of kind of like planning and drafting. This is a speech that he just delivered within the moment. It's on the eve of the Iraq War, so it's a very landmark historical moment, okay? They knew that the next day was the beginning of huge kind of like battles, okay? So it's a very loaded moment. So it's an improvised speech. This gentleman, this colonel is speaking to his troops, okay? The speech which was made in Kuwait hours before British soldiers entered into battle. Speech 2 is by General George S. Patton. So it's a delivered speech to troops of the United States Third Army in 1944. So it's just before, it's prior to the Allied invasion of France. And this speech was intended to motivate the inexperienced Third Army for its pending combat duty. So actually, both speeches are similar, maybe an intent and purpose. Okay, so we've got two men of power and authority, a colonel and a general. Okay, so hierarchical structures coming in. These guys represent power and authority and experience, both of them. They are both addressing soldiers, soldiers on the eve of a great battle, soldiers on the pinnacle of actually going into the field. Okay, where they are different is time. We've got the first one is 1944. Okay, so it's about the Allied invasion of France. The other is on the eve of the Kuwait War. So two different wars, two different historical moments, but both speakers, maybe that intent, that desire to motivate and persuade and rally the troops. But which is in the high style and which is in the low style? That's what we're going to determine. So, speech 1, we go to liberate, not to conquer. So this is lovely kind of antithesis here, the difference between liberate and conquer. Liberate means to create freedom, conquer means to override and to rule. So our colonel was making an immediate distinction. We go to liberate, we go to get freedom, to free people, to bring freedom, not to conquer. So this isn't simply about winning, this is about freedom. Okay, so speech number 1. Now the first speech is a little bit longer than speech 2, okay? We will not fly our flags in their country. We are entering Iraq to free a people, and the only flag which will be flown in that ancient land is their own. Show respect for them. There are some who are alive at this moment who will not be alive shortly. Those who do not wish to go on that journey, we will not send. As for the others, I expect you to rock their world. Wipe them out if that is what they choose. But if you are ferocious in battle, remember to be magnanimous in victory. Iraq is steeped in history. It is the site of the Garden of Eden, of the Great Flood, and the birthplace of Abraham. Tread lightly there. You will see things that no man could pay to see, and you will have to go a long way to find a more decent, generous, and upright people than the Iraqis. You will be embarrassed by their hospitality, even though they have nothing. Don't treat them as refugees, for they are in their own country. Their children will be poor in years to come. They will know that the light of liberation in their lives was bought by you. If there are casualties of war, then remember that when they wake up and got dressed in the morning, they did not plan to die this day. Allow them dignity in death. Bury them properly, mark their graves. It is my foremost intention to bring every single one of you out alive. But there may be people among us who will not see the end of this campaign. We will put them in their sleeping bags and send them back. There will be no time for sorrow. The enemy should be in no doubt that we are his nemesis and that we are bringing about his rightful destruction. There are many regional commanders who have stains on their souls, and they are stoking the fires of hell for Saddam. He and his forces will be destroyed by this coalition for what they have done. As they die, they will know their deeds have brought them to this place. Show them no pity. It is a big step to take another human life. It is not to be done lightly. I know of men who have taken life needlessly in other conflicts, and I can assure you they live with the mark of Cain upon them. If someone surrenders to you, then remember they have that right in international law, and ensure that one day they go home to their family. The ones who wish to fight, well, we aim to please. If you harm the regiment or its history by over-enthusiasm in killing or in cowardice, know it is your family who will suffer. You will be shunned unless your conduct is of the highest, for your deeds will follow you down through history. We will bring shame on neither our uniform or our nation. It is not a question of if, it's a question of when. We know he has already devolved the decision to lower commanders, and that means he has already taken the decision himself. If we survive the first strike, we will survive the attack. As for ourselves, let's bring everyone home and leave Iraq a better place for us having been there. Our business is now north. Okay, guys, that was speech 1. just digest that a minute. Of course, if you want to rewind it, then we'll go to speech 2.